Hey everybody, Razormouth here for Trump the Media. Well, it's been an interesting weekend. I haven't been around. I apologize. I just needed to take a break and just kind of lay low and take everything in. Um, but I did want to comment about both the rally yesterday, where President Trump went down to Georgia, and and came in to support the senatorial candidates in the runoff election for January 5th. And there was some interesting thing that came out of that rally. The purpose behind today's video, not earth-shattering in any sense. I'm not breaking any news. Of course, I'm not a journalist, just a guy with my own thoughts. And I guess this is a catharsis for me. This is how I work out my own personal feelings about what's going on. And hopefully some of you feel the same way. The president said something really interesting at the rally. I mean, he said many things, but I think for me personally, this is one of the more interesting things that he said. And let me play for you right here, okay? Let me just get this up and big, and away we go, Mr. President.
If you want to do something to them, I don't want to use the word revenge, but it is a certain revenge. To the Democrats, you show up and vote in record numbers. That's what you have to do. They can only win if they cheat. They can't win this state unless they cheat. And they cheat better than anybody. You know, when you think of it, the Republicans are much nicer. They're not nearly as vicious. Maybe a few of us. Republicans are too nice, he said. You're right. That's a very good. Thank you very much. I like that. But they are. They're too nice. They don't go after these criminals. They got to go after them. We're talking to people. Go after them. They don't go after them.
All right. That's really, I mean, there were many amazing things that were said at the rally, but from where I'm at right now with the point of this little video presentation, it's that point. The Republicans are too nice and they don't go after the criminals. Now, just stop and think about that. You know, we conservatives, patriots, freedom-loving people, all throughout the world, in fact, we tend to get really angry with the left. We tend to get really upset with the Democrats. We tend to get really upset with the sycophants in the national media who are basically operatives for them. We get angry with the left and the Democrats, right? Let's face it. I mean, and we view them as the enemy, and rightfully so. They are, in fact, the enemy, because what they believe in practically will have serious detrimental effects on the freedoms that we all enjoy. So no doubt, you know, and as President Trump pointed out, they cheat. That's the only way they win, is they cheat, they cheat, they cheat. And we get angry with that. But, you know, I think the point that we need to understand is that we ought to be deeply concerned with the fact that Republicans, and I don't consider myself a Republican because I'm not. I'm not a Republican, though I would tend to vote that way, is that the Republicans are really not interested in, it appears, they don't have the spirit, the courage, the passion, the foresight, the tenacity to actually lead the people who've elected them. They're more interested with outward appearance of looking like nice people. And while he's very right about what he said, the Republicans are the reason that the last 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency have been such an absolute difficult time for him. I mean, they were in control of the Senate. They could have put a stop to the Russia hoax investigation. They could have ended that long before. There are many Republicans, including Lindsey Graham, who sits on the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, who is privy to information that you and I aren't. They already know. They've seen all the things that are right now cloaked under the veneer of national secret information, and that revealing this information would have detrimental effects to the nation's security. You know that apparatus that the bureaucrats in Washington love to use to basically say we can't reveal this. They already knew long before we did that there was nothing in the Mueller report that in any way could convict the president. They already knew the impeachment was a sham, but they went along with it. They went along with it. Now, the president's being very kind here when he says Republicans are nice. And for the most part, they are nice. They probably have good intentions and they mean well. And for the most part, most Republicans are right on the money when it comes to a philosophy of culture and politics. They're conservative in their orientation. Here's an example of a nice Republican who, in fact, was in Congress and then was appointed to Trump's administration. And so certainly he's not an enemy of Trump. He's a supporter of Trump. But this is exactly what characterizes perfectly what President Trump means when he says Republicans are too nice. Watch this. This is an interview between Maria Bartiromo and Ratcliffe. Okay? Let me run it for you.
Does anybody think that the FBI will bring anybody into question? I mean, you did an investigation, a darn good one, throughout 2017 and 2018 about what the FBI and the CIA did to take down candidate Trump and worked with Hillary Clinton. Does anybody believe the FBI is actually going to bring these people in to question them, to find out what they were doing with the suitcases of ballots? Do you think?
Now, before he answers that question, notice his body positioning, his facial expressions. She reminds him that he was when he was in Congress, when it was politically expedient for him, he was, he was one of the few Republicans in the Congress who actually castigated the FBI for their behavior and for the ways in which they circumvented justice and used their power, the power of the investigative federal, the power of the Federal Bureau of Investigation to basically harass and if not implicate President Donald J. Trump with a treasonous accusation. And they were, in fact, the front line of the coup, okay? And if you recall, Ratcliffe was on the forefront of that along with Jim Jordan, who happens to be one of the Republicans I do respect. Anyway, she reminds him of how fraudulent, how unethical, how criminal, treasonous the FBI was at that point, and asks him, do you really expect them to do anything here? And notice how he answers.
Think so?
Well, I guess respectfully, I can only do one job at a time. And as Director of National Intelligence, that's not my role and responsibility. I have great confidence in our law enforcement authorities. I really do.
Okay. Do you see the point? You have great confidence. Are you like totally clueless? Are you that naive? You can't be. You just, it doesn't comport. This guy is in the administration now, is in the executive branch, working along with the president. He knows that the FBI has been compromised as a federal agency. He knows that there are a lot of Democrat operatives using the badge, using their investigative authority to do an end run on this president, on this administration, and on America in general. He knows that. And we've talked about how, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, a lot of the underlings are really solid Americans and patriots, but we're not talking about those people because they don't have the authority. We're talking about the top echelons like Christopher Wray at this point, and all of the brass that make the decisions and decide which cases to investigate, and not only which ones, how they're going to investigate, and which FBI agents they'll send, probably ones with very left-leaning Democratic sympathies. He knows this. He knows this. And yet he makes, let's hear it again because it's asinine.
I mean, I guess respectfully, I can only do one job at a time. And as director of national intelligence, that's not my role and responsibility. I have great confidence in our law enforcement authorities. I really do.
Clueless, naive, nice guy. Notice he wasn't comfortable with the question, and he kind of wanted to be dismissive by saying, well, it's not really my role. Well, you've been asked, just as a basic American citizen, tell us what you think about the FBI. Why can't you just be candid and real? Are you afraid of getting fired? Are you afraid of alienating? You got friends there? What's the problem, Mr. Ratcliffe? Why can't you just say what most of us are feeling in our heart of hearts? You already know they're compromised. You sat on the congressional committee to oversee that entire Russia investigation fiasco. You know they're compromised. You know they're unethical. You know that many of the agents in there are Democratic hacks and are behaving in a criminal way against this administration. Why can't you just come out and say that? That's exactly how we're all. And you were being asked here, not in your capacity, in your role necessarily, but just speak from the heart. And that's one of the other reasons why Americans and people in general don't like politicians. They've got to gauge everything. Just speak from the heart. But the naivete of him saying that he really has, belief in the agency and that they're really going to do their job. That's just, they're only going to do their job if they're forced to do it, if they're shamed to do it, if the political will is against them, then they might actually do their job. But they've been proven, and it's been shown, that they are political operatives seeking to undermine President Trump and America. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where being nice is really useless and a waste, and it doesn't serve us at all. But he's a relatively nice and decent Republican, okay? He's one of the good guys. Just remember that. And majority of the Republicans are like Mr. Ratcliffe. Nice guys, well-meaning, but really are unwilling to say things the way they need to be said. That represents the majority of the party in terms of political operatives, in terms of people who actually hold office, okay? But then there's the other kind of Republican, the kind that, frankly, you should run out of town. And no one represents this group a little better than the current three heads of the Georgia state, and that's Governor Brian Kemp, the Secretary of State Ratslinger, and the Lieutenant Governor, who happened to be on CNN this morning, and it gave us a wonderful, wonderful example of the kind of Republican that should be run out of town. They're rats, and they're easy to despise.
The governor is not going to call a special session of the General Assembly so the legislature can appoint its own electors for Trump as opposed to what the voters chose, which is electors for Biden.
I absolutely believe that to be the case, that the governor is not going to call us into a special session.
The president at his rally in Georgia last night insisted that he won your state, which is not true. He attacked your governor. He attacked the Republican Secretary of State, Mr. Raffensperger, also a friend of yours. He called the election, quote, rigged. Set the record straight, if you would.
Please.
Well, I think the rally last night was kind of a two-part message. The first part was very encouraging to listen to the president champion, the conservative strategies of Senator Loeffler and Perdue and the importance of them being reelected. The second message, was concerning to me. I worry that this continuous, fanning of the flames around misinformation puts us in a negative position with regards to the January 5th runoff. The mountains of misinformation are not helping the process. They're only hurting it. And Jake, I worry that we're handing off a playbook to the Democrats for January 5th. And certainly I can't think of a worse playbook to hand off over the last 4 or 5 weeks to the Democrats.
And
so I don't want to hear any more from Jake Tapper or this Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan. You Georgian conservatives, you Georgian Republicans, I hope you heard this, not because CNN deserves any ratings or your viewership of any substance, but I hope you hear this now. This is the kind of Republican, this Geoff Duncan, Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Republican. This is the kind of snake. He may be one of these principled conservatives, because I've come across some of them, principled conservative. They're so principled in their conservative ideology that they're practically of no use when it comes to the fact that we're fighting for our lives at this point, for the culture and for the nation. And to have this guy get on this news network, which is one of the most vile news networks there is, and to spout his sanctimonious, arrogant look about how he's concerned about the misinformation. What misinformation? The fact that the Georgian election in November 3rd was rigged, that there were a lot of irregularities, that it was in fact fraud, that we have reason to question the entire process. That's misinformation. Are you full of it? I don't understand how you Georgians elected this guy, or the governor, Brian Kemp. Neither of these guys. I just don't get it. I don't get it. But this is the Republican Party, and this is why, as much as President Trump's efforts to have the other two senators win, and I understand his personal affinity for both, and I understand from the rally that Kelly Loeffler, in fact, is the kind of Republican that you and I would actually like. I really liked it when he talked about how she was doggedly determined to fight really hard for Trump, and that she doesn't like Mitt Romney, and had some choice words for him. I mean, in my books, that means she's one of the good guys. There are a few of them, but she's one of the good guys. She's a fighter, not like this snake in the grass. You Georgian Republicans, you should all be flooding his email inbox and his telephone, and you need to let him know how angry you are. You need to let him know that you are so angry that his political career is toast. Him and Ratslinger, because I'm mispronouncing his name, and Mr. Kemp. Those three don't deserve your support. They deserve your ire. They deserve your anger, and whatever else you think is necessary to let them know that unless they're willing to do the right thing and not cover up the fraud and the irregularities and the shenanigans and all the rest of the fraud and crime that's being uncovered, that you will never, ever support them again, and that it would be better for them to be run out of town. I know it sounds severe, doesn't it? It sounds severe, but it's pretty clear to me, okay, and this is really the point, people, that we cannot rely on Republicans to do the right thing. I know Rudy and Jenna Ellis are going around to all the legislatures in these states and appealing to the Republican state legislatures. But if the Republicans are nice, like Ratcliffe in the previous clip I showed you, or snakes like this guy, Geoff Duncan, we don't have a snowball's chance in hell of surviving this. That's the state of the Republican Party. This is precisely why we probably do need a different kind of party. My only hope is in what happened at the rally with President Trump. And listen to this. This is great. This gives us pause to hope, because really, people, it's up to you. It's up to you. Listen.
Make sure you get a fair, square deal in the state of Georgia. God bless you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much.
Listen to this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're fighting. We're going to fight like you never saw before.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Fight for Trump. Fight for Trump. He has fought for you, for us, for the last 5 years, ever since he became the candidate, decided to get involved. He's been fighting all that time against all of these institutional enemies, against the Democratic Party, against the Clinton war machine, against Obama, the puppet master behind the coup, against the FBI, against the DOJ, against entrenched bureaucrats who hate him and will undermine his administration and his executive authority, against all the leakers, against the Democratic Party, against Schumer, against Pelosi, against Adam Schiff, you name it, and against Republicans, snakes like Mitt Romney and this Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan of Georgia, and the Governor of Georgia Brian Kemp, and the Secretary of State Ratslinger, which is probably the best name for the guy. He's been fighting those people, and he's had to put up with patiently all the nice Republicans that just want to get along, and they want to fight with dignity, and they want to be gentlemen, and they want people to acknowledge that they're fighting fair. When meanwhile, the entire world is set against truth and justice. So people, the hope is in you. I mean, ultimately, the hope is in God Almighty. I am a Christian, and I believe that He's in control of this. So we don't want to lose sleep. We don't want to lose ourselves to this. But insofar as He directs us, it's up to you to fight for the survival of your nation and for the freedoms that we have enjoyed all this time. And God bless President Donald J. Trump. Keep the faith, everybody.